close out this week's We Warned You About Rebound Inflation edition of the 5 things, or we could have just called it the tongue twister edition, would have been a little easier.
Rob,
Again,
I gotta tell you, I was this close to making it the "We Told You So" edition.
yeah, again.
Yeah.
We told you again. Thing number 5, Gary, as we've mentioned, want to start to have conversations just around investing. I know a lot of people my age, right, feel a lot of times confused. It can be scared, daunting if you're not spending a lot of time on this stuff. Money is obviously always very personal, right? And people react and use it in different ways or feel comfortable, right, in navigating these markets. So thing number 5, Gary, we're actually answering a reader's question, which I think is amazing. How should, Gary, a young person who wants to save and invest do that if they're not in the portfolio management business or if they're not an investment professional?
So, Rob, it's a great question, and it's one that I'm really excited to talk about. The first place to start is to realize that there are certain professions where, because of the work you do, you can help yourself. If you are a doctor, you don't necessarily need to go to the emergency room if you know the problem you have isn't that serious. You can do some self-diagnosis. If you're a nutritionist or a chef, you'll be able to eat well yourself. If you're an auto mechanic, you don't have to pay somebody else to fix your car. So there are certain fields where there are advantages. You can take advantage of your own services. One of the advantages of being in finance is I manage my own money. I don't need to trust somebody else with it. I don't need to farm that out. And that's a huge advantage, but it's also a full-time job. So, we got this great question from a young person saying, hey, wait a minute. I'm right at the beginning of my career. I'm not, going to be a hedge fund manager, a portfolio manager. What do I do? How do I
Mm-hmm.
do this? Right. And I think it's a great question. And the reason it's a key issue is because, when I was a kid, they told you, just save your money and put it in the bank and, you'd save in dollars. But given the debasement of currency, you can't save in fiat. You can't save in US dollars. You can't save in British pounds. You can't save in euros. The value of these, the purchasing power of these currencies go down every year. So the first place that we would start is spend less than you make, right? Because listen, it's really fun to have, a fast car or fancy vacations or private air travel or, bottle service at a club. Like these are things that are a lot of fun, but if you want to save and invest first, you have to save. So a key point is just spend less than what you make. Now, let's talk about the kinds of things that you can do long term um, to help invest in this kind of environment. And what we're looking for are things that you can invest in long term that you don't need to be checking the news every day. You don't need to be managing them on a daily basis. You don't have to be checking, daily reports. So here are the places I would start. I would start with positions in Bitcoin and gold. They are great hedges against currencies that are being devalued over time. I like energy. Energy demand will only grow over time. Oil and uranium are great places to have money. In fact, Rob, just today, there was an announcement that Google has joined Amazon and Microsoft as tech companies that are buying power from nuclear power plants to power their AI data centers. You tell me, do you think that's going to grow or shrink over time?
Yeah, definitely grow. And Gary, I think too, DKI, if I'm remembering correctly as well, we have a subscription specifically for students. So anybody that may be listening that is a student, we have discounted rates for premium subscriptions for you to get going in the market. And then Gary, to close it out, yeah, what are if you don't mind, some other areas where you think it would be good for basic or at least new investors, right, to take a look initially for themselves.
So I think one of the things that people can do, especially if you're just starting out long term, just buy market index funds. The fees are really low. SPY, QQQ, that's the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. Could you have drawdowns? Yeah, but if you're going to be investing over the next 30, 40, 50 years, those, those markets tend to do really well over time. You can do that. And then, if you want to do some individual investing, go get help. You're not going to be able to
Yeah.
do it yourself. You're competing against people who are
Yeah.
professional investors. And, that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of thing we do. And you're right. The reason we offer students a discount is because we want to see them have the opportunity to get really good
Yeah.
professional advice and get started young. And, we price those um, subscriptions right around the price for Netflix because every student has that. And
Right.
my thinking is, if it's something you want, if it's something that matters to you, if your financial future matters to you, it has to matter at least as much as, watching the next season of White Lotus.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point for me as well, Gary, especially since knowing you, right? Is just, yeah, you're going out into a market with investment professionals that are spending all day on these things, right? Where a lot of individuals don't have the time necessary, right? Or it just feels like you're getting into that game where it's just dart throw, right? But what has helped me in talking with you, consuming, reading DKI content is at least to start to see different things that I wasn't seeing before, right? So whether that's on a macro level in terms of how things are changing and shifting, that obviously presents new opportunities for or places for me to look like if it is individual stocks. And then I think with your recommendations as well, hey, I at least have some backing and some knowledge and some understanding and time that you've put in to then help me work my way through my own research and understanding of the position to make sure I'm fully confident, and if it aligns with the way I think. And obviously, as you go on, you get better and better and better at it. It's practice, right? And you need to spend the time and put the effort in. So I know that's been a big takeaway for me. And then also just in general too is, you're talking about it, but just to call it out specifically, is that budgeting, right? Understanding, okay, where that money is going, where it's going to be. I know as a business owner myself, right, cash flow is always one of those pieces, right? To make sure you're not leaving stuff in places where it's just wasting, right? Or you're not using whatever particular service you might sign up for. And I think until you kind of lay those things out, put pen to paper, you'll wonder, how do I find a couple extra $100 a month to invest? It's probably out there, right? But I think until you kind of sit down and take these things seriously and get a good understanding of, what your financial picture looks like, might be harder to identify those opportunities or feel like you don't have the ability to invest in these opportunities.
And you know what, Rob? Asking for help is a totally fine thing to do. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's probably better than buying GameStop and putting all your money into that. Fingers crossed, right? Like
Right.
instead of buying meme stocks, go get some help and figure out what you can do that'll make sense for the long term.
100%. Gary, thanks so much. Another great addition. Really like these questions that we're bringing to the table. If you have any questions that you want to ask, and maybe Gary, it might even make sense throw that up on the website, even a Ask Gary section where we might be able to just capture people, just a thought idea, the marketing guy, right, on the fly. So we'll have to note that one down. But either which way, you can reach out ir@deepknowledgeinvesting.com. That'll be a great inbox for you to use to submit some questions in the meantime. And this week's edition, again, the We Warned You About Rebound Inflation edition. Now I'm just trying to get better at it. And I think
Yeah,
I nailed it right
you
there.
got it. You got it.
This week's edition of the 5 Things. Thanks so much again for tuning in. As always, sign up for a free subscription if you can. Take the time just to do that as appreciation. Like, comment, ask us a question, tell us we're good, tell us we're bad, thumbs down. Really, any feedback is worthwhile. Gary, any closing thoughts for this week's version of the 5 Things?
No, Rob, I really appreciate what you had to say. Great, having you still in the host chair again. And for everyone who's watching this again, thanks so much. We really appreciate, we know your time is valuable. Happy to have you here. And if anybody knows Elizabeth Warren, see if she wants to be on the next version of the 5 Things, because that'll be a fun conversation. Other than that, have a great week. We'll see all of you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.